I guess we're call the Planning Development Committee meeting to order at 12 o'clock on January 26th, 2022. Approval of the agenda. Recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda for January 26, 2022 be approved as circulated. Yes. Everybody in favor, no abstains. Okay, good. Adoption of the minutes, approval of minutes, recommendation that the minutes of the Planning Development Committee meeting held on January 12, 2022 be adopted. Any comments? Any abstentions? Okay, all in favor, good to go. Development services update. Applications, current completed applications, January 26th. Scott, you're up.
Thank you. Yeah, you have the applications in your agenda, and we included the completed applications from last year in the agenda. We have one slide here that shows the current applications. I think the committee should be familiar with all of them. Cottonwood is on the agenda for today, I believe. Hillier Road's on the agenda for today. Still waiting for some info on Main Street. We're going to talk about Young Road. But yeah, if anybody has any questions about these, we can answer them now.
Gord, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. Scott, just that one at the very top, Nordic Court, that's been on there for a long time. Is it still active or they kind of gone silent?
No, I think it's still active. I've been in touch with, I believe Harley is his name. Yeah, maybe it's time we touch base with them again. As far as I know, they're moving forward with something a little different, but yeah, I should touch base with them again.
Just curious. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. New business. 5A 21-145-RZ, known as 806 Trans-Canada Highway. That the Planning and Development Committee recommend that the District of Sicamous zoning bylaw amendment 1007, 2022 be given first reading. Who's leading this, Sarah or Stephanie?
Scott.
Yeah, that one's mine. So this is an application. You should be familiar with it. Burned and Pancash came in June, I believe, and we talked about the rezoning and the development permit. I think at the last council meeting, or at the last PDC meeting, that you considered the development permit. So this is the zoning portion of it. We're recommending that it get that the council recommended get first reading, and we will be bringing it to the agenda tonight for council to consider first and second, and a public hearing. So the property right now is zoned C2, highway commercial, and the proposal is to rezone it to C2A, which is a new zone, highway tourist commercial. Yeah, if we go back a couple slides, you can see the air photo. Councillor Malmus, you asked for a photo that shows the adjacent properties as well, so everybody can see it. Gets access to Romer Road, shares an access off Romer Road with Tim Hortons, and then the idea is to, next to the existing Best Western building, build a new building, and then they would also subdivide off that the Best Western Hotel from this new building as well, creating a new parcel. But yeah, you can see the adjacent properties. Is there something you want to talk about with this, Councillor Malmus?
Yeah, my concern is that when you looked at the property line, like they have an overhang on the roof of the access. I think that's to the kitchen in Schmucks, and it looked like it was closer than it is. Like, does anybody actually know what that measurement is between that overhang on the roof of the Schmucks building? That overhang, yeah.
Yeah, I think the air photo, it's going to be hard to tell. I think you'd have to, even if we went on Lightship and tried to measure it, it would be difficult to tell. But
Yeah, no, you'd actually have to know where the property pin was and
yeah,
working off of that. I'm just going that it looks like when you look at where the property line is that black line on the, is there a property line there? Yeah.
6 meters, does that say?
So if you slide it up a little bit towards where that vehicle is, that'd be towards the highway. Just move the whole photo. So there is, I was concerned that dumpster bin or whatever, but that dumpster bin is actually right on the property line by the looks of it.
and you're talking about Joe Schmuck's property right now. We can't see what's on your
Joe's property. So
screen.
you got the orange truck there, then there's, I think it's a garbage bin.
Right.
That garbage bin was, the way it looked in ortho and all, because it was shaded out, that part, it almost looked like some of the stuff at Schmuck's was gonna be on that property.
Mhm.
It's clearly not, it's right on the property line.
Property boundaries aren't on right now.
That was my only concern. That's
Okay.
why I asked for the drawing that showed both pieces.
Okay. So if we go back to the slideshow, so the OCP, there's actually, the OCP designates it town center highway commercial and mixed use and high density residential supported in that OCP designation. And then the zone C2 highway commercial, the real big difference between this zone and the proposed zone is that there's no apartment use. So you're allowed one dwelling unit for an owner, operator, manager. So this new zone, C2A, would allow for multifamily residential and would allow for that the long-term use of the property for residential. In the new zone, we've captured a lot of this in the new zoning bylaw, and yeah, so we're hoping we'd have the bylaw adopted now and we could move this along a little faster, but yeah, that hasn't got there yet. We'll give an update on that later. And one other thing is allowing the height in the zone to be 24 meters or 6 stories. That's what they're proposing. Here you can see the site plan, and then there you can see where the new building's going, and then the development permit is going to address more of the form and character issues. But here's a drawing that shows what the building is going to look like compared to the existing building. So that the next step would be here you have the zone, the C2A zone. And you can see G adding the multifamily dwellings at second story above, and then the densities, and then the maximum height. The rest of it is pretty consistent with the existing C2 zone. So we did send this out for consultation back in June when we looked at the subdivision, the development permit, and everything kind of all at once and sent it out. Ministry of Transportation did say that for the development permit, they said approval is not required, but they did give approval for the rezoning. So they did say that they give preliminary approval for your zoning. We'll have to refer it back to them between third reading and adoption. Fire chief did have some questions regarding the building materials. We're still waiting for answers on those. And then with the zoning bylaw, we'll advertise in the newspaper and advertise to adjacent property owners. And then we'll get some feedback then, and we'll see what happens at the public hearing. But yeah, we're on track to move this along quickly. I don't know if Bernd or Pancash are on the line now, but they might be available for comments.
Yeah.
Any comments?
No, through the chair, I'm looking forward to this going through. It's looks like a really well-needed development for our community.
Go ahead,
Yep.
Brian.
Yeah, through the chair, I think we've looked at it a lot, and we need to try and move it forward as fast as possible. It's I'm sure they're pretty anxious to get it going.
Any comments from you, Deb?
Yeah, no, I'm completely the same as Brian. It's like whatever we can do to expedite this, it's important, and we need to get it done.
Okay, and my only comment is gonna be as it was all three previous meetings to ensure that this proponent works with Tim Hortons to ensure that fire lane stays well marked to keep vehicles from being parked on it, because that will inhibit the ingress and egress from their own building. So as long as that's somewhere in the documentation to maintain that fire lane markings, then I think it's a great project, and I hope it's done by next weekend.
Thank you. Sorry, I joined a little bit late. I was having trouble with Zoom, but yeah, appreciate the feedback from the council. Really do. Thank you so much.
Okay, any other comments? So the question is that the Planning and Development Committee recommend that the District of Sycamore zoning bylaw amendment number 107 or 1007 2022 be given first reading. Are we all in favor?
Yep.
Right, so we're all in favor, so we'll give it its blessings at the council meeting. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your joining in.
Could I ask a question?
Certainly.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the stage of the process this afternoon at 5 p.m. is a council meeting at which this DP application will get its first and second reading. Is that correct? And can you tell me when the third reading might happen?
The third reading is likely to happen the second meeting in February.
Okay, so that'll be like mid to third week of February, somewhere in there?
Correct.
Yeah, and that'll be for the DP approval. Is that correct?
Yeah, we could probably do the DP approval at that time as well.
Yeah, we certainly like that. It's really the DP approval that we, that's the critical thing we need to move forward, is the DP approval. Thank you.
Yeah.
The council meeting is the second and the fourth Wednesdays of each month. So it's the fourth Wednesday of February, I think, but February is a short month, so. it's
Thank
still
you.
important.
Okay,
Thanks.
we look forward to that. Should Bern and I be joining at 5 today?
It's always a good idea to join. Councillor Malmus can pass along the recommendation from the Planning and Development Committee. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be there for sure then. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 5B, 21-368-DP 1721 Hiller Road. Who's got this? Sarah?
All right. So this was brought to the committee before, just for feedback.
Can't hear you.
There we go.
Sorry.
So this was brought to the committee earlier for feedback, and now we're bringing it for a recommendation to council for consideration of issuance of this development permit this evening. Next slide, Stephanie. So here's the location of the Boys with Toys strata up on Hillier Road East. Next slide. It's currently designated general industrial land use and is zoned I1A. Next slide. This was the previous development permit, so we needed to do another development permit to address some changes in some of the building siting, snow storage areas, and changes along the south kind of property lines, which have changed now there, and they've gone into strata storage since. Next slide. So here's the current phase plan. We talked about in the last meeting how this boundary over here, the southeast side, that's going to change a bit, and that'll be subject to a separate application having to do with lot 3 and those racked bolt storage buildings that we dealt with last year. So this isn't 100% exact, but the buildings that are coming up in the next phases are phase 11, 12, and 13. All the other buildings are here. But these are the kind of major locations of where the changes from the last plan are. Something else to talk about is that since that meeting, Greg let us know that he needs to move some of this limited common property parking and outdoor storage down into here to accommodate snow storage. So he's gonna have snow storage up here on the northeast side and down here on the southeast side, kind of all along this neighboring parcel boundary. Next slide. So here's what we have for form and character. It'll be consistent with all the previous buildings that have already gone up. So gray metal roofing, beige doors, and beige metal siding. Next slide. So this was referred to internal departments. Really the only comments were from engineering, just noting that a professional engineer would need to sign off on the grading, site grading and drainage, because the plans that we have are older, they're from 2008. And there's been some changes to building locations and where the pavement is, and there's been some changes. So we just want to make sure that everything's going to be, that it's all installed and it's functioning properly for drainage. Next slide. So this would be the recommendation. I will just note there are some conditions in the development permit. We've kind of tightened it up a little bit in terms of that east parcel boundary along the residential neighbor on that one side. So that fence will be screened. This fence is chain link galvanized. It's already in, and it's in from the lot line about a few meters in, just because of the encroachment of the neighbor. His driveway and his house kind of go over the lot line. So Greg has worked with him and accommodated him. And then he's agreed to put in some privacy stripping for screening. He's a little up in the air on color, but he was suggesting green privacy strips for that lot line.
This is
This evening. Oop, it looks like we've got the wrong scroll up. Steffi should have there we go. That's the only one.
So you're not asking the planning development committee to recommend anything here?
We are, yeah, sorry, we just had the wrong recommendation up.
That says that the district is Sycamore. This is the planning and development committee. I'm thinking that's a council thing, isn't it?
My apologies. We should
It's on our-
amend that. I can suggest an amendment.
It's on our package. So
Well, isn't it, I'd love to see it on the package, but all I'm getting is,
oh, really? Here.
Thank you, Gordon.
I looked at it at home and it won't let me look at it now. Okay, so that's why I was going. I didn't see, like, usually the recommendation is at the top there. So I do have one ask. In the last meetings that we had with Greg, and he was online for it.
Greg's online too.
Good, thanks, Greg. I seen you there. That's why I mentioned your name.
Awake.
You were showing a road with a bulb on it. And now you have no road with a bulb on it. So,
Okay.
and I know that that bulb that's way up the property is not where the bulb is gonna be. So where have we drawn the road with the bulb to?
It'll be down here, just here.
So it's not, there's not gonna be any bulb at all into that.
It'll be further down. Yeah, so this will be part of that reconfiguration I was talking
Of lot 3.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for the application and the finalization of his plans for that. So that was, it's also a subdivision that he wants to tie to it as well. So we've been talking about possibly creating, so this lot line will go north a little bit because he needs to move these buildings back away from the floodplain back here
Okay,
and to meet flood elevation. And then he's still considering whether or not he wants to have there be a separate lot here and then lot 3 would remain. And he's just sorting out like the width of the road dedication and the standards with Jeremy and his engineer, Franklin. And then we're just waiting for the application. So that'll all sort out.
okay.
Trying to do that fairly quickly.
So Greg, for that entire parcel, your only access is through the front gate?
No, Jeff, we're looking at, and I wanted to make a couple comments, and I understand Scott and Sarah got to keep everything going, and I appreciate that, what they're doing and everything, but this is just a huge inconvenience, so, because it'll all tie in together, as it builds out, but we're looking at doing an access at the end of phase 13, an emergency access, because the reason we had a back gate there way back when was because the fire department requested that in case there was a disaster. So I still think it's important to have, it won't be a through gate, but you know, a project of this size, I think it's just prudent to have an emergency exit, which will actually, when the cul-de-sac is done, you know, on lot 3, which Sarah's talking about, I want to have an emergency access, you know, either between 4 and 13 phase, because there's sewer lines that go through there, or the end of 13. And I've got Jamie working on that right now. And, you know, this drawing is great because it lets us build phase 11. That's what's holding up phase 11. But it's really, Jeff, not the end product. So it's so confusing for council because, you know, Franklin's working with Jeremy on the final design for the cul-de-sac. So it, you know, you've got a drawing that's going to change a bit, you know, in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and that's the other reason I was asking, because I know that there was an emergency access there, and I'm just going, when you're done, how's that gonna exist? Because those buildings that are further to the back towards that neighboring house, I mean, if you have a fire in the buildings at the front, phase 1 and phase 2, how are those people getting out of it? Like, they gotta have an access where they're not driving out that front gate. So as long as that's gonna remain there and it'll be close to the cul-de-sac, that's gonna be important.
Yeah, so that's all getting designed. The other thing I got to talk about is storm management, because in Jeremy's comments is they you know, they want an oil separator. Like all these manholes and storm is in from 2010. It's through the whole project. It doesn't affect any of the buildings I'm building because it was designed and submitted in 2010. So if I have to put oil separators in now as part of this development permit, like I'm digging up half of the site that of all my existing buildings because the storm's all in.
So if the storm sewer is not connected to the water and sewer system, is it?
No, what they did is a dry well system back there in 2008 to 2010. So all of the manholes are surrounded with shot rock. And then they run an 8-inch pipe from each manhole to the next one. So if one manhole floods, it flows to the next manhole. So all 30 or 40 manholes are all connected underground. And it was a flood management thing that EBA did.
Is nothing of that, Greg, tied into that pond?
No, not in the storage, because all you're dealing with is, you know, roof water,
Yeah.
right? That's draining off. Now, there is some bays in phase 3 and 9 that we built that have internal drains, right? Inside the bays are the Cadillac ones. Those run into an oil separator, and then they run into the storm on Hillier Road, which runs into the, you know, the big pond. So anything that was done in the bay, the permit at that time, we had to connect them. That's why there's that sewer line that runs out to Hillier Road from phase 5.
Okay, so then to the staff, I guess, if it's roof water and the infrastructure's all in there, and if somebody, because I know I've been in Bay 9 and a few of the other ones where they do have, like, they basically put a car wash inside of Bay 9. And so I'm assuming that's the one that has the oil separator in it.
Yep, and that goes into Hillier Road collection system, which goes into the pond.
Okay. So
Yeah, so
why would we be asking for oil separation at this point?
this was a DP
Can't hear you.
condition. This was a development permit condition that I think's been revised. It was just a standard condition that's in all the industrial DPs. So I think it's been revised. We'll have to have a look at it for tonight and see if it's still in there. But we did do some tweaks after some conversation. So the oil grid separator thing was just a DP thing. It was not something that came out of engineering.
And I think the main thing is in the development permit in I think it's 4E, talks about everything has to meet the subdivision servicing bylaw, and then a professional engineer confirms that it's in good working order, and that our engineering department agrees with it. I think that's the main thing, is that, you know, we have that control in the development permit that, you know, our engineering department is going to agree with their engineer and the water's going where it should.
Yeah, so Scott, speaking to that, Scott, and I understand what you're doing, and the problem I have is the District of Sycamoose approved these drawings in 2008 and 9 to do this with Monahan Engineering out of Vernon. You know, he's now doing what he does, and handed, you know, 2-3 years ago, I brought on Franklin to do, you know, to finish off my stuff because, you know, Monahan is doing stuff here. Now I got a professional engineering that can't go stamp what was done by another professional engineering without digging up the whole site. I've spent hours this morning dealing with Franklin on this, and like this could be an issue where I can't move ahead. Because I can't have an engineer today go certify work from an engineer of 12 years ago without digging up the site.
Sorry, go ahead, Gord.
Through the chair, Scott, is that not why we have a building inspector? Could he not just go over it and do a quick inspection and we don't have to hire a bunch of engineers just to, review plans and all whatever else has to be done? Could we not just send Dale over and he can have a quick inspection, and that's what we normally do?
I think it would probably be more Daryl and Jeremy that we'd want having looking at this stuff.
And that's fine, as long as, as long as it gets, gets done and gets approved. Because there's only the 2 buildings that have oil separators in them, and the rest don't have floor drains, then all we're talking about is downspouts.
No, but I talked to Jeremy and he wants oil and grit separators before every storm. We'd have to put 30 of them in.
Oh, God.
We got to dig up the whole 9 acres.
Go ahead, Sarah.
I just wanted to note that planning has a concern with the snow storage being along that lot line. And that's part of why we want to confirm that the grading and drainage is set up in such a way that it's not going to be directed into that residential parcel next door and cause impacts, because it's going to be stored all along his fence line. So, and it's been happening in phases, right? And things have changed a bit over time. So we just want to make sure that everything's functioning properly.
Yeah, because you're supposed to contain the water on your own property, but also that guy's supposed to be on his own property. That's supposed to be on the other guy's property. So that's a bit of an issue as well. Just say, go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard to have this conversation and listen to this without having Jamie and Jeremy online. I think there's 2, Jamie Franklin and Jeremy, I think could give good input into the whole thing. Maybe that's something that we could talk to them, because it's a little confusing. It's a little confusing if you've got an oil separator from an internal drain, like in the shop, you've got a drain and that goes in an oil separator. That's pretty standard, because there's automotive work and stuff in there. But the asphalt and the roof water, I don't really get that. But then, like I say, those are the 2 guys that can maybe explain that a little more, because I think we're going around in circles a little bit.
So I'll just make a comment, and I'm not sure pretty sure Daryl was involved in it, but Old Town Bay, the road out there, when they went to go and move out there and start that, it was just a cluster. Because you had an engineer who had worked on the road from 2002, 2003. All the infrastructure had been put in already, everything. And then it was the same dog and pony show that the district shows up 10 years later, after all the infrastructure's put in, $10 million spent on the property, and comes along and says, dig it all up, because we can't find it. That's just wrong. If you've put in all the infrastructure, it was signed off by an engineer years ago, and you're running roof water, are you basically suggesting that at my house, I gotta run my roof water through an oil separator? Is that where we're going with this? Because I don't see Powell and Snow up there having anything to do with putting 30 oil separators in. Like how does that snow pile there get to 30 drain points throughout the property to have to put in oil separators? Like, go ahead, Sarah.
I'm not sure where this is coming from,
But
the oil separator thing. It was
That's-
in there as a DP condition, and I don't know that it's still in there, but it wasn't meant to turn into this.
okay, so there are
Requirement.
not a requirement for oil separators?
I don't believe so. Scott, is that oil grit separator condition in the DP still?
Scott?
I think Deb had a comment.
Yeah. Are you guys ready for me to make a comment or am I interrupting?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, and it's kind of along the same lines as what Jeff is saying is it's our recommendation, we're supposed to, or the recommendation from staff is that we recommend the authorization and issuance of a development permit. Is it possible for us to conditionally approve that and just I kind of agree with Jeff. It's like, to me, this should almost be grandfathered if it was all signed off and approved 10 years ago. I know things change, but bottom line is that, you know, like it was put in on the understanding that that was the requirements at that day, and that should be good enough in my mind, but.
Okay, so go ahead. Sarah and Gord just looked at because I can't even bring it up on mine. So
Yeah, I just looked at the DP and it doesn't say anything about oil separators or anything. It just basically says that the stormwater management provisions are maintained in good working order, that the drainage is not being directed onto adjacent parcels, and that drainage is being collected on site and conveyed to an appropriate stormwater management system. So that's basically what he's done.
So we're talking about something that where did this 31 oil separators come?
So it is in the development permit under C, parking and access roads.
Weird.
And it does say will be paved. Roofing will be directed into an on-site stormwater management system equipped with oil and grit separator. So going back to your question, if you had a residential garage and you had a drain in it that was going to the storm system, then you would be required, or the sewer system, you'd be required to, the building code, I believe, requires you to put an oil grit separator in your residential garage.
That's right.
Your roof leader, like going into the ground, which would be under the storm system, probably wouldn't require an oil grit separator. So I think maybe going along with what Deb had said is that council, or that the committee make a recommendation to council. You can address that requirement in C about the oil and grit separator. And then maybe Sarah could talk to Jeremy and Daryl before council meeting and have a little bit of some direction to go. And if it's okay to take that out, where the roofing and paving doesn't have to go to an oil and grit separator.
Yeah, I would make that recommendation.
Unfortunately, I'm blind. That's the
Yeah.
only PDF that I got. None of those things will download. The next one, everything downloads.
Yeah.
That was nothing.
So, I mean, I've talked to Jeremy about this extensively, and the intent wasn't that it would turn into like 30 things needing that. The understanding is that the one building has them in there because of the use of the building. There's the potential for oil spillage.
Inside the building, yeah.
Yeah, so they're there, and the condition was meant to be broad enough that it only applied in those kind of situations. So I guess the wording isn't quite quite right for this application.
Right, so that kind of makes sense, Sarah.
Yeah.
So it's a general,
It's meant to be
generally, and so in that situation, if it's inside the building, it would need an oil separator. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so for the whole site, generally, where you need it, you should have it.
Yeah,
And if you don't need it, it's under parking. You don't.
exactly. Yeah. And so that's what Scott's saying is that the way it's worded,
Right.
pavement and roof leaders are being directed into that. So it makes sense in the context of, say, Alhead Garage, because there may be mechanical work going on the paved area on the property, right? And that's where that condition is from. It was written for that.
Where's,
So no, I get you.
so, I just want to be clear, so it's in the permit under 4C1, that paving and drainage paved areas as well as the roofing be directed into an on-site storm management system equipped with an oil grit separator. Why would that be there? If
It's the wording needed to be revised. That's all.
so what is the wording going to be revised to?
It'll be revised to something along the lines of based on use. So we'll look at the zone and see what uses are allowed. So in locations where XX use is occurring, those buildings would be equipped with.
So.
For example.
It'd be fair to say that Boys with Toys does not allow people to do work on their vehicles and drain oil all over the asphalt. They would do that if they're gonna work on their vehicle inside the building, they would. So yeah, in that case, if the whole thing is where you need it, you should use it, but where you don't need it, you don't need it, it would be inside of those units.
Yeah.
You've got to drain. So that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it's okay.
These are
So,
specifically for storage, right? And some units can be used for some of the other
Yeah.
uses permitted in the light industrial zone, right?
so Greg,
Yes,
how do you handle, for example, Sea Dog has 2 or 3 bays? So do they have an oil separator draining the floor there?
so that, Jeff, that whole building in that phase, which is Sea Dog and all the other Cadillacs, that whole building has an oil separator by the house. So everything runs gravity from all of those 10 bays into an oil separator into the system on Hillier Road. That was
Okay.
all done. And same with phase 4, where Mitch was, where you've been.
Yeah.
And same with phase 5. All of that stuff goes out through an oil separator for the whole building and then out to the street. And that was all designed and approved by the District of Sycamoose. And I'm frustrated because we're going back in time and trying to invent something new.
It sounds like there's just been a bit of a error here. So I guess what we're saying, Sarah, is that, so if you're building a new building and you're perceiving that you're gonna have a floor drain in it, you have to put an oil separator in there.
Yeah.
So he decides to put an oil separator in for the full 10 bays that he's building, and he's got one line that runs through there. They all have a floor drain, whether they use it or not. That's acceptable.
Yeah.
So, and that would negate the idea that it has to be off the road roof and the rest of it.
Exactly. So what we're talking about is that the PDC consider a recommendation that supports the issuance of development permit, but with a recommendation to amend 4CI to blah, blah, blah. And Scott was recommending that we double check in with Jeremy first, and then connect that information back. So Scott, how would you anticipate that would go? Like,
I would say just amend 4CI to remove the word oil and grit separator.
and rely on the BCBC to require it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I'd say confirm it with Jeremy, and then council can make that decision to amend the DP based on this committee's recommendation.
Okay, so if I was going to read this recommendation, that the Planning Development Committee recommend that the District of Sycamoose authorize and issue development permit number 21-368-DP Strata EP S313 and lot 1, section 6, township 22, range 7, west of the 6th meridian, Kamloops Division, Yale District, plan holding EPP 32799, except phases 4 to 10, strata plan EPS 313, 1721 Hiller Road for the development of a strata storage facility.
On the condition that
Yeah,
4CI is amended to remove the requirement for an oil and grit separator.
okay, so if you add that in there, that 4CI be amended, then that's the question. Everybody in favor? Yes, you're all in favor. Okay, thank you. Thanks for clearing that up. It was a bit confusing.
Yeah, and Sarah, I just got one other thing. I'm okay with your grade of managing, you know, snow storage water, not going on to the neighbor's property. But like Franklin can say it's graded properly, right? Because that's easy to do. And you know, I use Muntz Construction, and Muntz Construction doesn't cut any corners, as you know. They're pretty organized. So like the grading is correct with the storm management. They just can't go in and certified storm management. They never designed and installed.
It won't do.
That's just an ethical thing that they have with engineers.
And I would think, so you're talking about 4E, and I would think if our engineering is satisfied with the report that Franklin produces, the permit, then the permit is considered to be issued. So it's a condition.
Scott, what if they're not satisfied?
If Franklin's not satisfied,
No, but they can't dig, they don't want to dig anything up. Like, how do they satisfy themselves? Like Jeremy's asking them for, you know, like confirmation, everything's good from 2010. How can they do that?
yeah.
So Greg, what happened out at Old Town Bay is that when they actually opened the gate and started allowing traffic to go down there, they had to confirm where the storm sewer and the water sewer that was, and so they cameraed it. And is there any way to just camera a couple of them? Like, I know when I used to do inspection, typically you would do 10%. If 10% was good, then it's okay, but you pick the 3 different spots and you camera between them, because I think that's the big concern, is just the water will flow between I mean, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but I know
that's correct, Jeff. You're 100% right. My problem is we installed this stuff with a permit in 2010, and we're reopening up the process.
The buildings have been being constructed since
I can't hear you, sir, sorry.
So some of the phases have happened more recently, like 2019, 2020. So they've been constructed far more recently. So.
Yeah, but the drive aisles haven't changed, Sarah.
So Jeremy's had a look at the storm management plan from 2008, and because the site, the way it's been developed, is not the same, and because additional dry wells were put in, they're just needing to confirm that everything is functioning properly. That's all.
So do you require Franklin to sign off, or is staff Jeremy gonna?
Greg offered a letter just outlining what's there and that it's all in working order and that the grading is done properly. And that's what I've accepted.
Oh, you've accepted.
We don't have the letter yet, but that was fine with me.
And so do you supersede Jeremy, or does Jeremy still have his opinion and job to do?
He still has his opinion and job to do, but he did rewrite the engineer's report a little bit to clarify the first line item on there. So the version that's gone to council tonight has been amended, tweaked a little bit, but in general, so the wording is very strong, but he's not asking for a full-blown stormwater management plan to be submitted.
Well, and Jamie Franklin wouldn't be able to do that.
No.
Wouldn't be able to do that anyway. So.
All right, well, So we've already approved it to go ahead, Greg.
Okay.
So it sounds like they're gonna try and make it that there's not, because I understand that one engineer, you go to a different engineer, you start from ground zero.
Yeah.
That's the way it's been forever, which is, my opinion, is lunacy. But, you know, they got a handbook that they use, but because it's your opinion, it's not my opinion.
And they don't have X-ray vision, can't see underground.
So, well, they do that even if it's not in the ground. They start from ground zero, they don't.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess Greg will have to wait and see what Jeremy comes back with. Jeremy's got his opinion to come through with.
Hopefully, I'll see if I can get a hold of him. He's actually gone home for the rest of the day, but I'll see if I can connect with him.
Okay. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, because Sarah, if we can't resolve it, it's no sense getting the DP because I might as well just, you know, not build out. Because I'm not gonna spend $100,000.
I don't foresee it being an issue.
Get that, Greg? She doesn't perceive it being an issue.
No, I get that, you know, but I live cautiously now.
Okay, well, you'll have to wait. It'll come to council, it'll get approved on that part, and we'll have to see where Jeremy comes from. So, but they did remove the oil separator from,
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you very much. Yeah,
okay?
Thanks, Greg.
Nice,
Thanks.
Greg.
thanks. Okay, bye.
All right. I don't even know what number we're on here. 5C, right? We did the Hiller Road, so 5C, 22-002-DVP 918 Cottonwood Avenue. I got it here. This one shows, that was the only one that wouldn't, I couldn't get anything off, but sorry, but thanks.
Okay,
So,
this one is a variance application for a new residential development up at the end of Cottonwood where it intersects with the right of way for Holly. So it's not all built out yet, that portion of Holly. This is the location here. It's ALR on the north side there. And on the east side, someone's got like a driveway access permit to go up the mountainside there to one of the big parcels there. Next slide, Steffi. So it's zoned R1 and 2. It's in the residential, low density residential land use designation. You can see it's kind of bordered with the rural land uses all around the north and east sides. Next slide. So let me move that up there. Thank you, Steffi. So the site plan is there on the left. So the house will go towards the front of the property and the garage towards the rear. Access is proposed off the unbuilt out portion of Holly. So they'll just need an unbuilt road agreement to use that access off Holly. So we've got a zoom here on the house showing where they need variances for the house. It's mostly for roof overhangs. So on the side yard there, which is on the west side, and then towards the front, the south kind of east side, there's a bigger overhang there for the covered deck. It needs a variance as well.
There's a roof over the deck.
Yep, on that side. So on the south side, that portion of the deck, the roof of the house extends right over top of it. Next slide. So this is the variances for the garage, which also has a carport. Just some roof overhang variances here for the side and rear yards, and then a variance to the height. So we're recommending to go to 7 meters, just to give them a little bit of wiggle room. As designed, though, the building is 6.57 meters in height. So accessory building height in the R1 zone is 6 meters. So they'll need a variance for that.
thanks, Sarah. Is the proponent or the builder online?
Dallas, I believe, is available.
Yes, I'm here.
And are you the builder or the proponent?
I'm the builder. I'm Dallas LaPointe from Point 5 Contracting.
And I'm just gonna point blank ask, Why such an oversize?
Just the clients I was working with, they said they do lots of snowmobiling, quadding, just wanted the extra space in the garage.
Okay, well then, that'll be short and sweet because my personal opinion will be, I wouldn't allow the variances because Holly is a road. And maybe it looks like a laneway because it never got developed, but it is a road.
Right.
Road access. And so you're not gonna build a deck out over the road with a roof. So yes, the lot back there, the guy that's up behind there that bought the property from Northway, he's still developing it. He's got cats and excavators up there. So that's gonna be an access where whoever buys up there is going back and forth, and I don't
Just a sec,
know.
I'm not following you. A deck on the road. Okay, so there's no deck that goes onto the road. Are you talking about the house now, like at the front?
Is that a house? It says deck on it.
So the deck will just be a little bit closer in here. It'll still be in the parcel. We'll just be back here. And if you kind of look at the existing road standard and how much room there is in the road allowance, and it doesn't, like once that's built out, there's still gonna be a lot of.
We're not
space.
affecting that road. Yeah.
Yeah, between the lot line and where this building is. So in terms of sight lines, someone stopping at that intersection to pull out. MOTI's legislated setback for MOTI roads is 4 meters. Go to the variance page for the house.
So MOTI has comment.
Of 4 meters. It doesn't apply to Cottonwood, but I'm just giving this to you sort of as a barometer, right? And so they're asking for a variance of 4.02. So, sorry, it's 4.5 for MOTI. So this would be a bit too close in terms of this, in that regard, but not significantly.
Right.
And then another comment on the plot plan, it does show, like, it says open deck. What that actually is a sidewalk with no roof, just a regular overhang on the dotted orange.
This is all fairly low. It's a
That's
raised.
all low, yes.
Yeah, so this here is the parcel boundary. And this is the setback. So it's just this portion that's in the setback.
I still think that what does our new zoning bylaws state for the setbacks?
For the front yard,
For front, side and residential, what's the new zoning bylaw state?
I think it's fairly consistent. It might be a little less. Scott, are you able to pull that up?
It's 6, 5 total, and 2 is the smallest on side yard setbacks.
The new bylaw side yard is 1.5 for both accessories.
That's for the shop, that's for a shop. and-
Yeah. Remember which meeting it was on, otherwise we'll just go to the project one.
Because I'm personally gonna recommend that we just go with whatever the new zoning bylaw has in it for residential.
Which zone is it? R1. Oh, should be right after CR. Go back up. Oh, no, you're right. Sorry. Scroll down. Yeah, so it's still the same. But the interior side is 1.5. For both principal buildings and accessory buildings.
On a second, I need to show.
Okay, so
So still a 6 and 5 meter setback.
I'm, you know what, we went through the whole process of coming up with a new zoning bylaw. And that was so that we didn't have to come here for variances. And people keep buying a piece of property that's too small to build what they want to build on it. So they should either go buy a bigger piece of property or build to the size that's allowed.
Okay.
So personally, as the chair, I mean, it's up to the rest of the committee, but
Yeah,
I'm not in favor of offering any more variances to people who want to build something just because they got sleds and toys that they got to put in there. Buy a bigger lot. So, any other comments? Like, we spent years doing a zoning bylaw. And we've come up with what is allowed, permitted, setbacks that addresses fire and everything. Your roof overhang is supposed to be 60 centimeters or 2 feet off of the foundation, which is meet the setbacks. So
okay. Well, let's,
if you're not gonna follow the rules, then we might as well forget about a zoning bylaw and this stuff and just have people come in with whatever they want to prove it.
all right, well, let's look at it from that perspective, from the projection perspective. So a roof overhang is allowed to project up to 0.6 of a meter into a setback, right? So,
I can't hear you. You have to.
sorry. So a roof overhang is allowed to project up to 0.6 of a meter into a setback. So that's an exception. So that's why we haven't varied it. What we're varying is the rule. So that's why it looks a lot more significant, right? So when we look at it from that perspective, like you look at these, this is 0.6 meters. So it needs a variance because it's 0.01 of a meter over. The one at the rear is a little more significant. And then this one here, you're allowed to project, I think, up to a meter for columns into the setback. But I don't think this includes roof. So a roof overhang. So it's 0.98 instead of 0.6. So it's like what, a difference of almost 0.5, almost double. So that would be the context. So it's allowed to go in here up to 0.6 regardless.
Go ahead, Gord.
So we need that extra 0.5.
Yeah, through the chair, because the building's not built yet, would it not be difficult to push this back up against the garage? And it wouldn't have to have this problem in the corner?
Absolutely. That's what I will recommend to my client.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I've asked the committee to comment on this. It was a discussion that was had. And the idea is that the amount of time and money that the district has spent on creating a zoning bylaw and 5 years of kicking it back and forth to come up with what is written in a document that says what the setbacks are supposed to be. I think that it's not built. You need to come back with it inside those setbacks that are set out in the zoning bylaw.
What about the height variance for the garage?
I think the height's fine.
What is the height of the garage?
From 6 to.
Now, we went to 7 meters, and we should probably look at that in the zoning bylaw because we approved 7 meters for the hemlocks. So go ahead,
Yeah,
Sarah.
I did notice that. So the height would be okay on that proposed garage to 7 meters?
Yes, but my comment to the staff is that we need to go back and change the height for accessory buildings to 7 meters in our zoning bylaws, because we haven't approved them yet. So before we approve them, because everybody's coming in and asking for virtually the same thing. So
Right. See that around.
we might as well have a zoning bylaw that's specific and identifies everything. And then on a new build, you got to make it fit. Go ahead, Sarah.
So the 7 meter thing was in there. I think that we had actually proposed 8 meters at one point, but it's still 6. And the reason for that has to do with, and this will probably come back to discussion with Scott, because we were trying to think of ways to deal with this, comes back to accessory buildings that don't look like residential buildings, and trying to somehow regulate that in a context where we don't actually have the power to directly specify, like, you can't have a building that looks like a garage, that looks like an industrial building in your residential property, right? We don't have the power of forming character on low density residential. So one way was that people need to come and ask for a variance. And through that, it's like, well, mitigate the impacts of this variance by ensuring that it looks good and fits in with the neighborhood, right? That could be an ask back as an exchange for the variance. It could be negotiated. So that's kind of where that's come from. It's kind of about which way you want to
We thank you, Sarah, because we had this discussion, and I hate to do this, but Mike Gold put up a Quonset, a farm Quonset, and we wanted to figure out how we could make it that you have to come into the office to get a variance to do that, so then you can get to the forward characters, and that's the way staff has calculated that we could do that, correct?
It's the simplest way without potentially getting into any kind of legal waters if it's challenged.
Okay, so then if we leave that as the 6 meters, then we don't have to adjust it, but I think.
We'll come back for variances.
So that I think that we have to start enforcing. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars getting this zoning bylaw done, so I'm sorry for the proponent, but we're kind of making an example out of you, but you haven't built anything yet, so draw it up so it fits inside the setback.
I definitely can do that, but I'm asking about the height variance. Would that be considered?
Yes.
Okay.
If the garage is gonna look like that, it will be. If you're putting a Quonset in there, no, it won't.
No, it's gonna look like that. That's why I submitted the plans and had them drawn up so that you could see everything.
Okay, so the recommendation, we need to edit that. So the only thing that we're going to approve for variance is for the height of the accessory residential building from 6 to 7 meters. The rest of it is.
Okay.
Well, it's it's up to you if you want to, like, you have the recommendation. Somebody can make a motion, right? You want to get a first and seconder, and then vote on it, and that we can take to council.
So are we gonna vote on an amended, or are we voting on?
I'll make a motion that we amend it to keep the house within the setback and the variance.
Accessory building as well within the setback. Everything stays within the setback.
Yeah, everything stays within the setback because they can pull them together a bit, and the height's okay.
And that we
Approve the 7.
Yeah.
I don't know how do you want to word that, because it really doesn't say anything in here. Issue a variance development permit, so
Deb has,
be everything that you're asking for.
So Deb
has a comment.
she's waving madly.
My comment is since we're making a recommendation, we don't have to refer to the setback issue at all. We can just recommend that we approve a height variance and just ignore the rest of it because it hasn't, like, just take that right out.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. I heard you guys talking about changing the setback stuff, and just remove it and then it's simple.
Okay, so how's this recommendation going to work for the committee?
So you're going to read to the end of to vary Sycamoose zoning bylaw number 101, 1993, and then you're going to skip down to the last section, the 1(2)B for the height.
Okay. So that the Planning and Development Committee recommend that the District of Sycamoose authorize and issue a development variance permit number 22-002-DVP for lot 11, section 31, township 21, range 7, west of the 6th meridian, Kamloops Division, Yale District, Plan 32310 to vary district, to vary district zoning bylaw number 101, 1993, section 6012, oh no, B, for the height of the accessory residential building. So, and the one that I'm reading, we have removed C and D sections. All in favor? Or, yes, all in favor? Deb, yeah, good. All right. Thank you. And sorry about that, but we have to start working within what our zoning bylaws are stating, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. All right, now, next. 1202 Young Street.
Take it away, Gord.
Okay, through the chair. I brought this back on the agenda. Just because I didn't realize that that lot was only 65 feet wide, and I thought it was like 100 or 75 feet wide, but it's only a 65-foot wide lot. And asking the gentleman to relocate his dock further north would be tough to do because the other neighbor on the other side is right up against the lot line. So I just, there's a couple things that happened. The boathouse there he's donating that to the Rescue Boat Society. I know Evan and Daryl, maybe Jeremy have been involved in that, where they might be relocating it to the other side of the dock on the district's public dock there. And I didn't want this to go too far down the road where the proponent has to do an archaeological site study underwater to relocate the pilings. And I just thought I'd bring this back for more conversation and see what we can do to help the proponent keep the dock where it is, because he's basically donating, getting rid of the boathouse. And that's what I thought I'd bring back to the planning committee. Sure.
So just jumping off what Gord has said, Councillor Bushel, my apologies. The status right now, we're pending on the outcome of a Splatson referral for the Heritage Act considerations for archaeological. And what the QEP, the biologist, has let me know is that it sounds like Splatson will support and provide a letter of support to keep the pilings where they are, to limit any kind of disturbance. So I'm not sure what the proposal would look like from there, from the last feedback received from the community. So yeah, one of the suggestions was to change the request to 3 meters to make sure there's still room to get into the public marina and any expansions that might happen there. But the other suggestion that was given to the agent was to look at doing angled accesses to try to make better use of that narrow lease area. So I'm not sure what they're going to come back with.
So earlier today, Gordon and I went down there, we had a look at it. And I thought that, there might be a way to win on this. So the conversation that Gordon and I had 3 days ago or 4 days ago was that, if they allowed the district to have some parking along that side that's on our side of the property, because it is the district's lot line is where that bow tie is up there. That's district property. So then it was brought to our attention that he's donating that building and he's donated it to SARS. And SARS doesn't really want to have it down at the public dock at Finlayson, because when you're bringing in somebody that has been in a boating accident or whatever, they might not be, so that's, and you got the boat launch being used, so it's too busy. So for everybody to win, and then it was also brought that there could be the possibility of the police boat being inside of one of these. So as a good corporate citizen, maybe the district could consider that those buildings just switch to the other side on our property for the use of search and rescue and the police, and that we leave the dock in its current location so that we have access Yeah, so that we have access to it. And I don't need to see it. I know what I'm talking about. It's, everybody else needs to see it, but do you actually, could you bring up a topo of the?
Do you have the map running still?
Yeah.
We just think, and it's just a suggestion that can be looked into, but it leaves the piles where they are. The council would have to agree that the district is going to allow these two, because they got a grant to build a new boathouse. And so if the police boat goes in there and their boat goes in there, then the next consideration is how do you access that? So just zoom in a little bit. So, and I don't know, Gordon, you know the owner of the property, does he plan on putting in a new ramp, or is he just gonna continue with the existing ramp?
Because they do have to put in that fixed section, right?
Pardon me? I can't hear you with that mask.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, so because they have to bring this up, right? So there'd be a fixed section here that will move. Like this access isn't changing, but I think there are, I can't remember how far along.
An elevated walkway.
Oh, so he's gonna put in an elevated walkway up here.
Yeah, and then this part will float, and of course they have to make some changes to their piers, or they piers? Pilings, so that it can't ground, right? So there'll be some changes to that, and I think they had to put in a few new ones. They're trying to reuse what they had, and there was a few new ones they had to put in.
Okay, so we should work with the proponent and with SARS and the district to have a discussion about, because I'm just gonna go over here.
Jeff, and I think Mike's on the line too.
Is Mike on the line?
Scott has a comment.
Scott has his hands.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's like a really big picture conversation that needs to be had, you know, with the public boat launch, or the public moorage, sorry, off Main Street, and then all the way to Finlayson. Like, so we're looking at the flood wall, and that's going to impact, you know, the one beside Reds, which is Renko, and then Carol's Marina. Both those need to redo their flood wall, and that's a requirement from the province. And then this property, I don't know the state of the existing wall, but you know, our flood wall project could impact that property, and then it is all going to influence the moorage as well. I believe that the boathouse being removed was a request from the province, or it was the QEP saw like a win for the province of removing that boathouse. So the idea of adding another boathouse, like, I think there's like kind of a big conversation about A, the flood wall, B, all the moorage in front of the flood wall, and then, you know, if you go all the way back to Mackey Square, the Finlayson boat launch, yeah, I think, you know, it's a really big conversation that needs to be had, and the flood wall and the funding we're seeking could answer a lot of those questions. Definitely, I like the ideas that you know, working with Michael to kind of reconfigure that and provide the boathouse for SARS and the RCMP, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be something that we're necessarily going to solve at this meeting. Definitely, let's keep talking about it, and yeah, let's go over some ideas. But as some of the information on the flood wall unfolds, you know, we're going to be dealing with Crown Lands, DFO, Flinroe and the Water Act, Flinroe and the Diking Authority, rights of way, archaeology. Like, this is going to be a pretty big project, and yeah, it would be silly for us to consider a flood wall without considering everything that's going to be in the water. So, and then, and obviously Michael and his QEP Michelle are working on the issue right now. And Ministry of Flinro's working on those other issues with the Renko property and Carol's Marina. So I think, yeah, it's going to be a big project and a big conversation, and this area could look totally different by the time we're done. But yeah, let's keep talking about it. And maybe I interrupted you, Councillor Malmus. I got the impression you were standing up at the screen about to point at something. So yeah, that's just an overview. And I think it was, yeah, thanks Councillor Bushel for bringing this up, because yeah, it's an update maybe on the flood wall where, yeah, we're ready to have a conversation with everybody in the same room, being Crown Lands DFO and the Diking Authority. So yeah, any information we get out of this meeting will be valuable for the next one.
So I'm just going to make a comment. That was the only reason to bring this forward, because Gord and I kind of knew that they wanted to move that boathouse, but today we were enlightened that SARS got a grant for $250,000 to build a new boathouse. So where are you going to put that one? I don't even know logistically by the size of that building if the two of them would actually fit in between that dock and our walkout on our dock. And also, this does not show, maybe if the proponents online, if your QEP's online, where is your high water mark? And what is that? Is that the black line that's just about back by the building there? If you knew where that high water mark was on the front of the proponent's dock property, the Young Street property.
I believe we do have a survey that has it on there. It's just not included on the.
So is that the line there that you have your cursor over? Looks like a line code.
No, there's no lot lines in the lightship right now. If you go to the utilities map, Stephanie.
It doesn't matter so much where the lot line is. It's going to matter where the QEP says the high water mark is.
It's where the surveyor says the high water mark is. So I guess there's this, because it's so developed there, what the province wants, they want to start from the historic boundary. So then it's basically the surveyors figuring it out, looking at old.
So I can't hear you with that mask.
I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. So what the province works with in highly developed areas like this, where it's been developed over and over again, they look at the historic natural boundary. And so then that's a role that the surveyor plays in that. So we do have a survey. I don't think that Steffi has, do you have access to that drive with the file?
Which one are you?
Ed Gord.
On the slide, it has the permit number.
Or sorry, brought it.
Is it in the PDC?
Just a couple of questions there, Michael. Well, just one thing, if you wanted to add anything, and the other thing was, I lost my train of thought. Did you have anything you wanted to add, or? I don't think he's there. You're on mute?
Michael, are you available? You're on mute. Here, nothing. What were you?
I was just gonna say, I think we're missing.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, I did have a bunch of comments to make. Obviously, this is a twist I was not expecting with the boathouse. It's quite an interesting proposal, and I'm confident we would be on board with anything that could come from this. One of the stuff that you were just talking about was, about the high water mark. I don't know exactly where the high water mark is. I just know that we were required to move our dock, the initial where the ramp ends, we had to extend it further out because we were in where our dock was grounding out along the shoreline.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that feeds into what you're referring to there. And the other thing I was just going to comment on was, and it's already been brought up, was to do with the archaeological study through the Splatchin Nation. Was they were and still are in favor of a proposal that did not require us to move those piles that are currently there. And I think that's what Councillor Malmus is referring to, or is already suggesting with this new thing. I just don't know how we move forward with this because our dock lease right now is valid until 2024. So this sounds like a big project that could push further into those areas and makes it difficult for us to move ahead with it. So I guess my comments would be, how do we move ahead in an expedited manner on this?
So I guess the idea is that the committee has just been made aware of some new information. So about a month ago, maybe 3 committee meetings ago, so maybe a little longer than a month ago, we met with all the proponents to the north of you, being Marina, Carol, and the guy with the next property that, and we're looking at doing a seawall because one of them was looking at replacement. And as you know, Carol's boat launched the seawall and it failed. So, and as part of our flood mitigation. So we were intending on putting it in, and those proponents agreed to contribute. And that would cover the cost of maybe 20 or 30%, whatever, because we're going to apply for a grant. Staff's been directed to apply for a grant. So now what Scott was referring to was continuing on to in front of the Main Street Landing property with this. So we have to get that survey stuff done. So Sarah basically has said that the province on existing properties is not so much going with the idea of the high water mark. They're going with the established kind of current has been for 40 years where their property line or what's been being used. So as you can see, if you can see that drawing, yours goes across the front of your property and then it kind of squares out to the front of Carol's property to your neighbor, but it kind of looks like she's got some free dirt out there if her property line is accurate. And then to the north, it's the same thing again. So we have to do a bit of work to do this. And it was discussed at those meetings that the walkway would not be on the actual water side. It would be on Young Street. So, but that has not all been determined yet. That is still up for discussion. Council hasn't approved any of this. But now that we're already a month into working forward on that side of it. And then we find out about these boathouses and an opportunity which would allow you to leave yours where it is, as long as you're willing to allow the district access for that emergency service. That would have to be figured out somewhere, but as long as you're willing to participate in that side of it, because if you're putting in a pier and a ramp, maybe we can make the pier a little wider at the top end and therefore have it that it's gated off on your side and then and only on that dock, only for the emergency, basically police and the SARS rescue.
Yes.
So
I don't see anything personally that would be a problem on any of that. The Chamberlains who own that property are very community oriented, and they would support anything. Like when they heard about the opportunity of possibly giving the boathouse to the SARS people, they immediately said, yes, let's do that. That just makes sense. So okay. I don't think there would be a lot of pushback on this.
Right. Well, I think that you should, probably a couple members of the committee will work with staff to see what is the next steps, and then maybe at our next committee meeting, we can have a discussion about this. You said 2024. I don't
That
know
is
how
correct.
long, I don't know how, but if you're working with the district on some of this stuff, like you've got an extension till then, or is that when it comes up?
It's called a modified lease agreement.
Okay,
And yeah, they just say it expires in 2024.
yeah, but if we're talking about putting in a seawall and they know what we're doing, then
Yeah,
like I said, but it's just new information, and I think it's good to have conversation about it amongst us, and then if everybody's a willing participant, then we can move this forward. So go ahead, Gord.
Oh, I think Brian,
Brian.
Brian, you first.
No, that's fine.
My question was timing, Michael, is is Don want to get this done right away, or can we wait a little while till we have some more answers on our flood wall we want to put in front of him?
no, that won't be an issue. He will, we were only concerned with the timelines on our modified agreement and getting things done in that manner so that it doesn't expire. And I don't know what happens once it expires. But yes, we were more than willing to explore this idea and find out what works for all of us.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much for that. And so I personally, I used to build marinas and docks, so I'm a little bit familiar with that process. As far as the seawall goes, I'm just going to ask Scott. Planning committee asked about checking into grant funding, and I thought there was a grant fund that was the first day was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have an application ready for submission for?
Yeah, so I looked and it didn't open yesterday. What we did was we met with Kerwood Lydell and we asked them to come up with like a cost estimate for just the section from Finlayson to Main Street. And I think we're ready to go with an application. I think we have all the information. Once we have that cost, we can put it in. But yeah, it didn't open yesterday like we thought it would. So we'll keep our eyes on it. So.
Okay, well, that's good if it didn't open, because I was going to say, did we get one in?
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike, we are working towards that, but I think that our next meeting should involve, I don't know whether it has to be at the Planning Development Committee meeting or if it can just be a meeting amongst, but I think SARS should be a part of it. And Pat Gow is out of town right now, so if we could arrange a meeting with SARS, I'm not sure, like I've heard, but we need to know definitely what they plan on doing. And then we need to figure out whether it'll fit in there or not. And if it's a location that interests them, and then work with Mike and the Chamberlains on what they want to do. And I think everybody could come out on the winner on this, maybe. But it's going to start with a conversation.
Well, we were interested.
Okay, that's good. Brian?
Nope, that's good.
Deb?
No, I'm good. Just looking forward to starting on this seawall and getting things going.
Okay, so is it acceptable with staff if we have this meeting, or do you want to have this meeting at the next Planning Development Committee meeting? Do you want a lot of time for it with SARS and Mike and sit down and have something kind of sketched out? Like we need to see what SARS is planning on doing. Like maybe what they're planning on doing is too big to fit that hole. I don't know.
We could certainly look to book a meeting under the flood wall project with these two.
Yeah.
So it'll have to be in context with that, right?
Yeah.
And so then I don't think it would need to be tied specifically to a planning committee meeting date or time.
Well, it's just that SARS applied for a grant and got the grant to build a certain size building. So with the building that you have at the certain size building, you know exactly how big this is got. You can't put one in front of the other. I don't think they're not gonna work there.
So would you want to try to arrange something for next week or?
I don't know if next week's too soon. I don't know what, you know, when Pat's back.
Yeah, he'll be back at the end of this week, so, yeah, he'll be back on Saturday, so. I think there's more stakeholders here than you realize.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, so I think you should get somebody together. I don't think it should be in this meeting. The reason we're talking about this is to, you know, because of all the extra facts that have been learned.
Yeah.
I want to show some leniency on their thing, but as far as the bigger picture thing, yeah, I think you need to have a bunch of people in that meeting and not just, and I don't think it should be at this
format.
No, this format.
Is staff all right with that?
Scott, any?
Scott, are you okay with setting up a meeting where all the stakeholders have a meeting just in general to just discuss this?
Well, I think that meeting might be above my pay grade. I know Evan has an interest in this. And maybe we should have that conversation with Evan and and decide how that meeting should unfold. I don't want to commit to anything here, and I don't think I'm able to.
Okay, well, that's passing the buck. So, all right, so we'll have a conversation with Evan then. And
Yeah, I
see
think
if
so.
We can coordinate a meeting and then we will set forth to arrange it. And what kind of notice do you need, Michael?
I'm pretty good. I can go on, 3 or 4 days notice. I'm pretty good that way. So thank you
All
for
right.
asking.
We'll try and pin down Evan and get a commitment from him. He usually comes to these meetings, but he's pretty scarce today. And so we'll try, we're gonna see him some point today, so we'll try and pin him down and get a commitment or get something put together where everybody says through, what is it, that monkey thing that you can attend a meeting at this time. So we'll come up with a couple different options and then try to get the right people in the room and have a conversation.
Is there somebody in particular I should be sending my contact information to?
I
setting up meetings?
think
I have it.
you can send it to Sarah or you can send it to Scott.
Okay, I have Sarah's email, so I will send it to her.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Any other comments? All right. Boy, we've got to rush through the last ones, I guess. So E, active transportation network plan and parks and trails master plan, verbal update. Who's got this? Stephanie?
That's fine. So yeah, our active transportation plan, we met with Councillor Bushel and Councillor Malmus 2 weeks ago, and we came up with a map, and we presented that to Urban Systems at our kickoff meeting. We also talked about a number of things with Urban Systems. I noticed on the council meeting agenda, there's someone who's talking about crosswalks on the highway. That was a big topic of conversation with Urban Systems, was identifying those spots as far as active transportation, those crosswalks on the highway. Another conversation we had was about the Main Street Bridge, so including a cost estimate in the active transportation plan on a pedestrian bridge across Main Street, tying in the Larch Hills Traverse with the rail trail. Some of the other things that we talked about at that meeting, just to give them an idea of where the community has a need for some trails right now. So we've given all that information to Urban Systems, and we've got some meetings scheduled with them, a site visit coming up. One of the things we'd like to do is at the same time, well, we're going to try and do all the public consultation in-house. I think that's one thing that we showed last summer, that Sarah and Steffi were really good at, is the public consultation side of things. So think we can save a bit of money in our active transportation plan on the public consultation side of things and move that over to, getting some road cross sections, identifying some, some instead of Class D cost estimates, some Class C cost estimates on some priority trails. And then at the same time, since we're going to be engaging the public, where I recommended and Evan approved that we just go forward with a full-on Parks and Trails master plan at the same time. So when we were looking at some of the information on Main Street and 200 Main Street and looking at different parkland, we realized we don't have like an up-to-date inventory. We have lots of the background information, but we don't have a lot of the background inventory or a proper Parks and Trails master plan. So I guess the update on the active transportation network plan is that yeah, we met with Urban Systems and they seem on board with some of our ideas, getting the best value out of this planning process, and that this at the same time we're doing the public consultation that we can get a Parks and Trails master plan kickstarted and hopefully have both those done at the same time coming up. So yeah, Steffi's going to be busy with the public consultation again this summer. But yeah, if this group has any questions about either of those plans, how they could look, then I'm more than willing to answer them.
I have a comment. We 2 weeks ago sat down with you and went through it. Do we actually have that map that you had the conversation? Can we put that up on the screen?
If Steffi can find it.
Yeah. In the meantime, I think Deb has a comment to add. I'll search for the map.
Go ahead, Deb.
Just something I'm very interested in with, because this is the sort of thing that I'd be reporting back on in my Communities in Bloom submission. What are you thinking in terms of timing of completing this project?
We're probably looking at both of them being done by next December.
Next is in 2022?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, yeah, I guess just with kind of along the lines of Jeff's comment, is some of this stuff going to be online to take a look at? Like, I know you're going to be doing public consultation, but I don't know, just in terms of us keeping abreast of like where you're at with things.
Yeah, we'll do our best. So we just had our first kind of kickoff meeting, and then we're planning kind of a monthly meeting, project management meeting, a site visit coming up in early February. But yeah, I'll report back to this committee, on a monthly basis for sure.
Okay,
So here's the map that we created. I think we captured everything we've talked about in the past. You can see the crosswalks, where the existing crosswalks and the potential crosswalks, a bunch of different colored trails there, potential trails, existing trails, different road styles or road cross sections, and those road cross sections have either sidewalk or a walking path of some kind, but work in progress. Yeah, we can get everybody a copy of this map, and we can talk about it at the next meeting of where you'd like to see some of the trails and things. How does that look, Councillor Malmus?
It's everything we talked about, and yes, it would be good if you could. I don't know if you want to make this public yet while you're still having discussions with engineering, but it would be good if the members of the Planning Development Committee could have copies of it, as well as probably the councillors. Just because, everybody in town here is longtime residents, and they might have something that we missed. Hopefully, yeah. Gordon and I didn't leave any stone unturned. The only comment I have is that on the Trans-Canada Highway, the Yarmaloy property and the Silver Sands Road intersection, Yarmaloy has put in a trail. back to Gill,
Okay.
up to the edge of his property. And so, there might be a requirement for a crossing at where we're trying to get an intersection at Silver Sands.
Okay, we can add that to the map.
Just as a comment, because he's put a trail all along the side of the highway there. If you've noticed that it's already all in, gravelled, everything. So go ahead, Gord.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the same thing. If we could get it out to the rest of the committees and council, that would be great. I just had one other one. I saw, just in the last couple of weeks, I've seen people struggle on Highway 97. I'll just show you real quick. It's where it's not really an actual crossing, but it's where people are crossing here and they're struggling getting through the ditch here. And it's just something to think about if we put in a little, because that's in the center of the whole subdivision, and people are crossing there without any walkway. And in the wintertime, it's really, you can see a path going through there, and it's pretty. Some guy was struggling going through there today, and he was getting ready to fall over.
That's the one that links up with Martin Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a common one that everybody uses it, but there's not really a crosswalk there or even an elevated dirt walkway, so they don't have to go down in the ditch.
Yeah.
That's another area.
So it's straight across, like if Spruce Street was extended, basically.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Maple or Spruce, but it's one of those.
Somewhere in the middle, maybe.
Probably lines up with the walkway out of Hemlock Crescent.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah. Okay.
The, I have a comment about so you've got an orange line there that goes up to the Larch Hills Traverse and across the channel. Would that be part of the new bridge walkway, or how does that? Or is that just saying that if you walk across the bridge on the pedestrian, then you can walk up the highway and?
This one?
Yeah.
I think those are potential, just.
Potential? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that interests me.
All right, any other comments on this?
Good work.
Okay, well, if you could actually send that out to the councillors and the members of the committee staff, that would be great. Number F, District of Sycamoose zoning bylaw verbal update. Is that Scott again or Steffi or Sarah?
That's me again. So we're getting really close with the bylaw, and yet nothing new that from the last time you've seen it. Right now we're working with Ministry of Transportation, so we referred it to Ministry of Transportation and started a conversation. They haven't given us their official referral yet, but in that conversation, they said they'd want to see 17 traffic impact assessments and 23 covenants on different properties. I think Sarah and I can probably deal with about 95% of those ones pretty easily, just explaining to them, what the issues are. An example would be on Mervyn Road, where they've recommended a traffic impact assessment for the Sycamoose houseboats, and they already have a covenant on it that says no development until there's a traffic impact study. So we're like, why would you require a traffic impact study there when there's existing covenants? So a lot of those are those types of issues. Another one is, an existing, tourist accommodation building that has 100 units, and they're saying, well, if they tore that down and rebuilt it based on these new densities, they could have 300 units. And it's like, well, they can have 300 units now. They're not going to tear them down and build, and kind of those conversations where they've just kind of painted everything with the same brush, and we need to get them to get out some different brushes or different colors or something. So I think we can deal with about 90% of them. Some of them we're going to have to, come up with a little bit of a solution for, but Sarah and I are working on that. So we're going to continue our conversation with Ministry of Transportation and And once we get something solid, we'll bring it back to the Planning and Development Committee. But just an update to let you know that we are still working on it.
Is there any advantage in the Planning and Development Committee members seeing the 7 to 10% that you're concerned about?
I don't think so right now, just because we are still we want to kind of get Ministry of Transportation to agree on most of it first, and then we can start looking for solutions. And when we're looking for solutions, we'll bring them back to the committee.
Okay. Any other comments about the zoning bylaw? Hearing none, move along. G, parking. Councillor Bushel, you're up.
Through the chair, yeah, I just want to throw this out on the agenda. It's just, lots of people have been talking in the community about, parking and just want to get it on the radar and see if, we have a conversation about, we talked about some of our assets, maybe getting rid of some of our land but we should really take a good look at parking. And, I just wanted to get the conversation going and see what staff, I'm sure you guys have been looking at it, but have you thought about it or anything you could share with us?
Before you go, I'd just like Brian to make a comment first, then Scott, you could jump in.
Yeah, I think one of the things to think about is our winter season and tourism and how we've got I think there's a part of the town that I've had people say, oh, these goddamn sled trailers and parked everywhere, and then I've reminded them that we really struggle with our seasons here. We're busy. We've got lineups outside of restaurants in the summertime, but then in the wintertime they're really struggling, and some of our businesses really are affected. So the sledding is a really major important thing. And I have in front of my house, I've got people parking there, sled trailers and everything. And I think we need to look at something we can do about where some of these guys can park safely, because they're just not we don't have a big central parking lot in town where people can park there and walk, off-street parking from Main Street, things like that. And that's a really big thing in the wintertime to try and I think we all need to be a little more understanding of some of the find a way so that our sledders are they're welcome into the community, but then not block up the snow plowing along the roadside. So I agree, Gord, that we need to look at parking and all year long, but we need to see what the district has, what kind of land, and what can be done.
Before you speak, Scott, I'm just this is not a slam on the district of Sycamoose, but let's just look at our own parking lot. We lost how many stalls because we just pushed the snow, piled it up. And you know what? In this district, when I first came here years ago, before the district started, hiring employees and doing our own thing, the contractor that did it went down the road with graders and loaders and dump trucks, and the snow was gone and hauled away. And you go to the restaurants, they're trying to get rid of their snow. The street just plowing the snow back in front of them. Riverside, that piece of property that you park in, day parking and no overnight parking, beside, where they're putting in the new condos, that's all piled up with snow. And that never used to be the case. That snow used to be removed and dumped over at the nature trails, because we always had a big pile there. And in the spring, there was a big pile of sand. So it was kind of like the recovery point for the sand we spread on the roads. So I'm just saying that, you know, we don't have any parking. Every time we do a road, like, we should just get on it and take the property to make Riverside the width that it's supposed to be and do it. That's development to give it to us so they can pay for a sidewalk. I don't know how we get that extra width, but parking is a premium. And with every development that we do, we seem to negate the parking part of it. That's what's happened in the past. So I'd like to thank Cole, because it's been a constant beef of mine for 7 years that I've been a councillor, that we don't have any parking, and we're doing zero to resolve that issue. So, Sarah.
I just have a comment. Apologies. I have a comment / question that's related to what you're talking about. I noticed that the official community plan does include language around zoning for public parking. But that is something that could go different ways. So I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration to where something like that would go. And we'd be talking about, we don't necessarily have land where we need it to be to do that right now.
Well, I have a few comments, but I'd like to reserve them for when we have some meetings to do with the buildings that are going to get built in town. It's great that they're talking 60 parking stalls approximately is what's on the thing for the wellness center. Because the wellness center parking will be utilized outside of the business hours, right? As long as we enforce the no parking laws, right? So, but we have to address the parking issue within the rest of the community. If we're going to have development where we're going to build 60-unit apartment blocks like the Habitat for Humanity, and we have to find parking for the residents, and we're going to have commercial space, where's the commercial space parking? So when we do this work moving forward, if we don't consider that parking area for the business, then you're either going to have a downtown that's all residential with no parking, like the downtown of Kelowna. They took away the angled parking on Main Street, which cut their parking, let's say 90%. 3 years later, they built the parkade next to the library, which is 2 blocks off of Main Street, but at least they put in parking someplace. So that's what we have to be looking at. Is, are we going to go vertical parking? We're going to sprawl it out on flat land. You need a lot of parking. And in our downtown congested area here, I don't know how that's going to work out. I'm not a parking lot design guy, but you got to look at the type of buildings that were done in the OCP, which is 4-story buildings, what the density of it, the requisite, the requirement that we have in our bylaws that says how many parking stalls per unit. And then for the commercial, how many parking lots, and then look at the downtown, look at the 2.5 acres we got and figure out how we're going to get some parking on that, as opposed to putting in a bunch of buildings and housing that is going to delineate from everything that we're trying to get to. So it's, if we can work things together and come up with a solution, we can actually answer all of it. But the way it is, we've got this group doing this and this group doing that, that group over there doing that, they're all entitled. So. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think I can respond to that in part. So there's 2 issues. One is making sure that development provides its own parking. The other issue is accommodating visitors. So needing public areas to accommodate that. So I think, we are looking at updating the OCP a bit. So I think that would be a good place to put in some language around partnerships with development, potentially like finding alternative ways, right, to help provide additional parking. New zoning bylaw does have updated parking regulations that are based on current best practices. So that should work. I mean, we can always amend and update it if we see issues. So I think what I'm hearing is, try not to encourage variances for parking.
That's the point. Same as, let's not do any more variances for setbacks on properties. If it's a new build, follow the rules.
Sometimes people legitimately need to ask for variances on awkward lots, that are impacted, but I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
You need to walk down Main Street, you need to build a park off street and have people park off street and then walk down. That's that's a healthy community, that's a healthy Main Street. Because we can't park everybody on Main Street in the middle of summer, so yeah, we need to find a place. But I don't know where that is.
All right, well, we're out of time here. Thank you very much for the staff attending this. It's good information. We'll corner Evan on the request that Scott made, or Scott, are you gonna corner Evan, or would you like me to do it?
Yeah, I can talk to Evan about it. Yeah.
You want to talk to him right now?
Is he in the room right now?
Oh, he's waving his hand. No.
No. Okay. Evan, we need to talk about the Main Street moorage and all the other moorage along there, including the potential for some boathouses.
Right. You want me to do an update?
No, we're out of time.
What did you ask me to speak at?
So we need to set something up with you.
All right. Let's go back to my hole.
Okay, good man.
Thanks, Evan.
Thanks. All right, so having said that, recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee meeting for January 26, 2022 be adjourned, the time being 1:55. Yes, okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
There you go, Ben.